Hello everyone and welcome to this pick a card reading video. In this video we will be looking at which country you should move to. And if you watched my other video with the states, which state you should move to, it will be the same concept here except for there are obviously 4 stacks to choose from instead of 3. As well as from last time I listed 2 different countries for each stack. And yeah, so 4 piles total, 2 countries listed for each stack. Now, of course, you do have free will. You don't have to actually move to these places, but if you feel drawn to any of these stacks, then you might just one day find yourself wanting to move to one of these countries. Or you could even already live in one of these countries. It happens. So, anyway, here is pile 1A, stack 2B, stack 3C, stack 4D. You can pause if you'd like and if you need some more time to figure out which stack you are most drawn to. If you are not drawn to any of the stacks, that's completely fine. This just might not be the pick a card reading video for you, but I have plenty of other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my YouTube channel. And if you feel like you're not drawn to any of the countries specifically that I talk about, you may find yourself moving one day to a country or feeling drawn to move to a country that's similar in nature to the countries I list or their qualities. As a reminder, everything I talk about and discuss in this video is for entertainment purposes only and cannot be stated as fact. Alright, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. The cards pulled here are Death card upright, 10 of Wands upright, 4 of Swords upright, the Lovers in reverse, the Star in reverse, and the 5 of Pentacles upright. And then we have the Moon upright. For the Oracle cards is the Moon upright. Ebens, which is number 8, and that is in reverse. The keywords are mystery, reading between the lines, intuition. And then we have Wolf, Guardian, you are safe and protected at all times. And we have Religion and Spirituality. If you hear things thumping around here or you hear like weird noise near the microphone, it is because it's my cat and he's thumping his tail on the ground and he's purring, so. Okay, and then there's another oracle card we will get to later when it comes to timing. Hopefully I do not forget to do that. And then we have, oh, what was I gonna say? I will use my phone maybe at some points, but the countries that I pulled or that I listed here are India and Nepal. So if you don't know much about India or Nepal or even Tibet, that region is where the Himalayan mountains are. And I just feel like a lot of you probably could feel very drawn to the Himalayan mountains or just mountain areas in general. Especially when I pulled the religion and spirituality card, it made me think of, like, what was it, the 70s and 80s when people really started going to India and Nepal and I mean Tibet as well, and people started like hiking the regions and people were very spiritually enlightened during that time, or at least trying to seek that, right? So it reminded me very much of that time period when I was looking all this up. With the 4 of Swords upright, it makes me think, if you look at the traditional tarot and you think about the traditional tarot, it's somebody who's laying down in a bed with the swords like up on the wall. And so it's somebody who's able to just reflect and relax. So I think the country you should move to, if it's not India or Nepal, should be somewhere that is very spiritually inclined, where people feel like they can reflect and people can do that more as a solo journey. Even if you were to go to these places with other people, like to travel, visit, or to live permanently, there's a sense that, going to these areas, even if you travel with others, it's a lot about self-reflection and about your own being, your own healing journey. And even with Eben in reverse, I love that we pulled that. I haven't read in the guidebook, but uh mystery and intuition, all that reminds me of all the people that have gone missing in the Himalayan mountains, and also there's just a mysterious pull, a mysterious draw to the Himalayan mountains that people feel drawn to climb Mount Everest and all that for people say it's no reason, but it's like they just feel drawn to those areas. Or you just may feel drawn to the mountains, to the hills. It's like how some people feel drawn to the beach areas, lakes, rivers. Some people feel drawn to living near mountains. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is that group. There's just a lot of mountain energy, and especially Himalayan mountain energy that I was getting from this. Yeah. And I want to talk about wolf now. It says you are safe and protected at all times. I wonder, part of the reason this card is pulled is because, especially if you're a woman, I know that in India, probably in Nepal as well, the crime rate against women is very high. Uh, yeah, so being a woman, I think you just have to be extra cautious. Or, yeah, the certain areas you live, it might just be very different from what you're used to in your hometown, your home country. So Spirit is saying that if you were to move to any of these places, you would be that they would watch over you at least. Still be safe, use logic, but at the same time, Spirit is saying they would watch over you during this transition and while living in these places, especially if you are a woman. I think too, because a lot of people would go to these places alone. So if you were to move here alone, it might feel like it's hard to assimilate. That's what I was getting to, is I think for a lot of you, it might be hard to assimilate with what you're doing. Or not with what you're doing, sorry. It might be hard to assimilate with the community, like with the people. So if you were to move to India or Nepal, I think people might be intrigued by you, but people would find it hard to take you in as like a new member of the family or a close friend. I think people would have their guards up with you. So I think it will feel hard to build a community with people. I just feel like a lot of you will feel quite alone. Like a lot of you will seek that alone time and wanting to find yourself. But at the same time, there needs to be a balance. And I think that a lot of you will struggle to find community and find people that want to know more about you. It feels like a lot of you would move to either of these places because I hope my cat does not start scratching at the bed. Yeah, I just poked him. He looked at me. Oh no, he looks like he wants to play. Oh, now he's scratching. Let's see how long he goes for. You feel the energy? Oh my god. Oh! Okay, he just ran off. That's great. This is a very highly intuitive stack of people, though. We even have the moon here, which is known to be very intuitive, tied to intuition. And so I think a lot of you are very intuitive, which is why if you're feeling called to this place where a lot of people who are spiritually trying to become enlightened or more in tune with their intuition, then it's not surprising that if you fit in with that description and if you would want to move to either of these places. And it seems like with Death card upright, it's really cool that that's the first card that was pulled because I think a lot of you are going through a phase right now where you want to experience an ego death. A lot of you, I feel like, are wanting to shed old beliefs, shed like a lot of the conditioning that was placed upon you from a very young age. And I think a lot of you too could be involved in corporate America or like, anywhere, right? More of the corporate world. And it seems like you probably work very hard and you still don't feel very emotionally fulfilled. So it feels like you want to have that sort of ego death. You want to find who you are. And people associate that messaging with places like India and Nepal and anywhere near those Himalayan mountain areas. Four Swords, again, I see you taking this time for, I don't know if you would live here forever. For a lot of people who move to India or Nepal or closer to the Himalayan mountains, when people are trying to find themselves, it seems like people don't live there forever. And for a lot of you, I don't see you living there forever, but I see you being able to gain clarity and gain insight. But with the star in reverse, it makes me have to provide a warning that things won't be as they seem. Things won't be as easy as you think. 10 of Wands upright, a lot of you will have to work very hard. I see that if you were to move to one of those places, for some reason, a lot of you, I feel like, would have to engage in more, like, manual labor, such as, like, construction or, like, anything outside, especially. Like, some of you could even be I don't even know what their equivalent is there for a park ranger, I guess just like a tour guide, I don't know. But I see you doing something that could be outside, but I see you doing something where I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you try to grow your own food or mm, I feel like you'll live quite far away, and you'll have to travel a lot by foot or not by having your own car as well. Oh, I guess kinda like the, 10 of Wands, how he's, like, almost hitchhiking in a way. But I see a lot of you actually having that kind of energy where you're doing a lot alone and you're also, like, traveling a lot of places by yourself and by foot, and I see it being a lot harder to do the everyday things that people near who live near the Himalayan mountains do, which they do a lot of everything themselves, but while being isolated. I think it'll be harder for a lot of you than you realize. Like, I think at first it might be exciting, or once you settle into this state of being in this country, you'll be more some of you will, what am I trying to say? I think you'll soon enough develop that comfort and excitedness, but then it will start wearing off and you'll be like, "Oh, this is actually a lot of upkeep." And places like that as well, you have to be careful because the star in reverse also indicates health. And with Five of Pentacles upright, I think a lot of you could struggle with the food there, like having that every day. And you could be sick once you start living there. Also, not just the food, but the water. Having access to clean drinking water, I think a lot of you will actually potentially struggle with those things. And so that's also why it will be hard to assimilate, is because of any health issues that may arise. So again, I don't see things being as easy as you may think it is. And I think a lot of you know that, healing journeys aren't easy, but there's a lot of physical aspects that will make it hard. So if there's anything you're trying to go through to shed anything from the past, like and go through any ego deaths, I think that you would be able to gain clarity while being in these places, but I think there will be some regrets you have once you end up moving away. I think a lot of you maybe will go to the extreme ends. Like you really think of, oh gosh, what is it called? The people who have not hotels, but lodging, I guess you could say. I guess you could also just say hotels, like the people who run their own guest houses, I think it's called. Not porters. What is it called? I want to look it up on my phone, but I'll just keep going with this. It makes me think of those people who are like very close to the mountains and there's nobody nearby, and it's hard to get access to the outside world. Also, I will say in those areas, if you were to be up near the mountains, there's crime that happens that people just don't do anything about, like law enforcement doesn't really do anything about. People sometimes just get away with things. Yeah. The Lover's card in reverse too, it makes me think that well, first I wanna go to Ten of Wands again, because I feel like I really have to emphasize it's gonna be hard work living there. It'll be, like, harder than because if you live in a place where you have access to other resources that wouldn't be available there, I think a lot of you will struggle with lack of resources, with lack of connection to, like, the internet, or a lack of connection to even family, I wanna bring up. 10 makes me think of family. Um So a lot of you could struggle with not only building your own community or not building, but finding your own community of people in either of these places, but also would make me think that you'll realize the connections you've made in your home country, how much you miss them. And so I think that will be very hard on you. But the lovers in reverse, it makes me think that if I think a lot of the people who've chosen this stack are probably single. If not, then just take what resonates. But if you're single, I don't see you being able to find any romantic partnerships here. Not only because I think this is more of a solo endeavor that you're going on, but also because it just ties in with you not being able to get along with the people in the community, or not get along, but get deep with people, form long-lasting connections. Because it will be hard for you to form any of those sort of connections, I just see it being very difficult for you to also have any sort of love life. And I don't I was actually thinking, just now that some of you could also be touch starved while there. I wonder if some of you love physical touch, so I see a lack of physical touch happening for you as well. Uh, for some of you may say that that's part of, like, the spiritual journey while being there, but I see a lot of you really struggling with that. And the Five of Pentacles upright, the reason why I think that relates to the country is because I know that India is still a developing country, even though it's the most populous country in the United States. Oh, wait, what? What am I saying? Sorry, in the world. It's the most populous country in the world. Nepal also, I don't know if Nepal is underdeveloped or developing, but it's not a developed country. And also, I want to say that with all the cards here, it makes me think I was getting caste system vibes. Some people say the caste systems aren't in place in India anymore or Nepal anymore. Some people say they still exist, they just aren't labeled as such. But it feels like, oh, and with the death card too, yeah. So I was thinking about when I was doing research for this video and trying to make sure that intuitively the countries that came to mind made sense. I did talk a little bit about the crime rates. They aren't as high as some countries, but they can still be considerably high. And also with death, it made me think again about how up in the mountains, crime that happens, it doesn't really get reported as much, and people can get away with things. So just be careful about that. Also with death, yeah, you have to be careful that you have, I feel like a lot of you would, living in these places, not have access to the best healthcare, or you'd live far away from good health care, like hospitals, medical resources. Yeah, and with Ten of Wands upright, it made me think that people here do have a hard, because oh my god, there's so much I wanna say at once. There's, the caste system that does or used to exist in India and in Nepal, and either way, whether you think it still exists or not, there still is a big divide between the very rich and the very poor. You could say that that's very similar to how it is in America, but it's especially so, I think, in India, where a lot of people do not cannot afford to, like, live on their own in anywhere that's expensive. It's there's just still a very big divide between upper class people and lower class people. You either have a lot of money or barely any money at all. And so I think being in that environment, you'll also see that, where there's a lot of hardworking everyday people who, even if they work really hard, put in extra hours, work all the time, there's still people who can't really make ends meet, who still have to beg for money, or who still have to, yeah, get part-time work as well, or just not have access to their family as much, not being able to see them as much. But it does seem like people in these places do, for the most part, kind of keep to themselves, even though, again, what I'm about to say, it's because of what I have heard from friends that I had. This is growing up in North Dakota, right? But I had friends who their parents were from India, or even they were directly from India, and then later on in childhood moved to the United States, and they would talk about how some of them talked about how there is actually quite a bit of gossip, uh, at least in India. I don't know about Nepal. I did have, a couple friends from Nepal. They didn't really talk about that, so I can't speak on that, but so it's really interesting. I feel like people mind their own business, but at the same time, they don't. Uh, I think it just depends on like, what part of town in either of these countries you're in, right? But I feel like a lot of people have to focus on day-to-day survival here, and I feel like With the star in reverse, a lot of people don't get very many opportunities. At least not nearly as much as people say in the UK or America do. So it makes sense that people are just working day in and day out. People in these countries are just working to provide for themselves and their family. And with the Five of Pentacles, no matter how much work they do, there's still a lot of people who don't have much. And that isn't just money as well. It's like you don't have much for land, or you can't travel much because of you don't have access to a car, right? Or you're far from when I Five of Pentacles, it makes me think, even though there's, for example, and I do know more about India as a country as opposed to Nepal, but, uh, in these places, more so India maybe, there are technological advancements, right? There are very smart people in these places, but it's just about having access to these places or to these different resources, but oh, what was I about to say? Uh The Five of Pentacles upright can indicate that, the lack of resources or the lack of the ability to tap into any resources, if that makes sense. There's something else I was gonna say with that, though. Five of Pentacles, Five of what was I gonna say? I don't even remember. Okay, and then the Lovers in reverse, it made me think also of arranged marriage. Arranged marriages still happen in India and in Nepal. So, I mean, technically they happen in many different places, right? But I know about like, there's literally a show on Netflix that has, like, 3 or 4 seasons, and I've watched all of them, and it's called Indian Matchmaking, and it's about this matchmaker who almost kinda does arrange marriage for these people, but it's not like an arranged marriage, they can choose to date first, but there's very big emphasis on elders or people older than you putting you together to try and, like, see if you can get along, and a lot of it is focused on with the lovers in reversed, it focuses also on marriages being founded on, people in similar backgrounds, right? So it makes me think of the caste system in a way, or it can be like classism can be involved where it's like, if you make a lot of money, you typically won't see people, there being with somebody else who doesn't have from a lot of money or doesn't come from a lot of money. Even though, like, weddings are a big deal in those countries, there's not typically as much emphasis on the love. There's an emphasis on, okay, do you believe enough of the same things and are you both like in a similar like pay bracket? And yeah, like how many kids you want, all that. Not as much on the actual connection that can form between people. So that's why I was also thinking about how this could be related to India and Nepal, it's just all the reasons I listed. I feel like there's really something with that Five of Pentacles I have to talk about more, but it's just not it's not I don't know why. I usually when I forget what I'm gonna say or like they just slip past my brain, then I kind of ignore. I'm like whatever, but I feel like there's something with that Five of Pentacles that's important for me to say that I haven't said yet. The reason why I associate it with I will say also from the spread, it indicates to me that there is a big emphasis on family, not as much like the loving dynamics between family, but I think I already mentioned this, but just like working hard for the family, making sure that you provide for the family. So a lot of people in these places live with family, even after they get married. Like people a lot of times live under one home, under one roof as a family unit. There's a very big emphasis on that. So I was getting that as well. And then the moon and religion, spirituality. There are, there's religious and spiritual people everywhere, but for me, that still just indicates the draw that people have to these areas as it relates to spirituality, as it relates to more Eastern religion. and spirituality as opposed to Western. So if you're more Westernized, then this could be a completely different form of spirituality that you want to tap into more. Of course, I don't know about Nepal specifically, but I know in India, Hinduism is practiced the most, and Tibet, I believe, even more than Thailand, is the most Buddhist uh population in the world. And then I almost did put Thailand for this, by the way, but I'm like, just for everything I'm seeing, it doesn't make sense. And then for Nepal, I wonder if it's Hinduism. I don't know. Let me look real quick. Most prominent religion in Nepal. Yeah, 81.19% as of 2021 are Hindu, 8.21% are Buddhist, 4.39% are Muslim, and 3.17% are Kiratist, which is an indigenous ethnic religion. 1.76% are Christian, 0.01% are Sikhs are and 0.01% are Jains. Sikhs and Jains, I think you'll find a lot more of those people who follow those practices in India. That's the thing too. There's so many different religions in India, especially, that you'll be able to find different places and communities of people who practice these different things. So for some of you, it's about learning about these different religions and spiritualities. Well, I guess I've already said that, but there really is a big emphasis on healing oneself as a means of, or through, I should say, healing oneself through different religious and esoteric ideologies. And I think, is there anything I want to say about the moon before I go into the guidebooks? Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of you are very drawn to these places. Mount Everest is the highest place on Earth, so the Himalayan mountains has also it has a history of being connected to spirituality. And when people talk about Shangri-La, it's not is Shangri-La, wait, where exactly? Isn't it still in India or is it Anyway, it reminds me of Shangri-La, where people believe Shangri-La was where heaven and earth meet, so it's like heaven on earth. And a lot of people think that the actual historical place of that is in the mountains, which makes sense because the higher up you are, closer to the sky, the closer you are to like God and the heavens and all that. I don't remember if Shangri-La, it's in a mountain range. I think it's in India. It might be Nepal, but it's not Mount Everest. It's not the Himalayan mountains. Let me look this up real quick. Where is Shangri-La? Even though it's like technically a fake place, it's not real. Oh, that's right. The Kunlun Mountains in Tibet. That's right. That's right. Um, yeah, so there's a lot that could be learned about these places. I recommend doing research before moving to any of these places if you ever decide to. But yeah, moon. It's just that intuitive draw to these places, and just those places in the mountain regions in general having such a strong connection to source. Let's go into the guidebook now. I will only be reading the card meaning. So it says in reversed: gullible, not questioning, naivete, blind accepting, conditioning, isolation. Yeah, I think mainly isolation probably makes the most sense. Gaslighting, propaganda, lies, and paranoia. Paranoia wouldn't surprise me either. Um, when people are alone for so long, I think they can kind of go a little bit crazy just because we are meant to be social creatures. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, we hear about that, people kind of going crazy when they're up in those mountains. And when you have also less oxygen, the higher up you go. Some people aren't good at handling those things. So I think some people do hallucinate and experience different things. Also, up in those mountains, there's people who, it's not like ayahuasca, but there's certain I've heard about people consuming certain things that alter their state of consciousness. Also, I will say the other things that are listed here for the reversed, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you have been very drawn to cults. I'm not saying joining one, but just knowing about them and learning about them. But also, I think y'all are at risk of potentially joining one, so I would be careful about that because I think a lot of you are, the quote unquote free thinkers. You want to be able to explore, and there is quite a bit of Sagittarius, but also, yeah, I don't know, Sagittarius energy in here. uh, where you want to learn about other cultures. Also, death card does represent Scorpio. The lovers does represent Gemini, and the star in tarot represents Aquarius. I was gonna say Gemini too, for some reason, but Gemini and Sagittarius are opposite each other on the zodiac wheel. But there's a big sense of exploration. But I think a lot of you could be tricked into believing things that aren't real, or you could just blindly believe things because you think it's very cool and spiritual. So just be careful about that as well. Now let's go to Wolf in here, which is the last card in the guidebook. And it says, you are protected at all times. Trust that. The physical, emotional, and psychic barriers you've erected to protect yourself from past hurts and wounds are simply no longer needed. You've moved beyond your need for the illusion of safety that these habitual defenses have provided. It's time to trust that Spirit is always available to aid in your protection when you really need it. Relaxing these barriers and knowing that they're accessible if you really need them leaves you open to love, both giving and receiving, especially to the ones you're closest to. Don't hold back, clutching to some obscure fear that others won't love you back. Be outrageous in expressing your affection for those you love, and know that your family ultimately extends beyond any lines drawn by heredity, race, or species. All of us beings on this planet are family, whether human, animal, or plant. And the more you love, the more love finds you. Take good care. Additional associations: family, loyalty, friendship, teacher. Yeah, and there is this big concern about potentially not getting along with people in the community. So I believe that you could be able to find people that you get along with, but I just think it will be difficult for a lot of you, and so a lot of you might want to give up on that, but this is a really good indication from Spirit that, like, you'll be able to find the right people. You just might have to dig a bit deeper or take more time out of your day to try and find people who you really connect with. And for some of you, what I was talking about with family and friendships, it talks about or reminds me of what I had mentioned earlier about how some of you, with being away from friends and family, it will make you realize how much certain people should still stay in your life. I think a lot of you are trying to go through this detox right now of, like, not talking to anybody in your life from your past or present. But I think with that card being pulled, Spirit is saying that there are some people in your life that you can trust and that you can rely on, that you can be happy around. And so I think having this period of time, whether you move to India or Nepal or not, I think right now or sometime in the future, you will go through a period of time of realizing that certain people that you've cut out of your life maybe should still be in your life. The star in reverse, maybe it wasn't the best timing or opportunity to do that. Maybe you should have given people more of a chance, or you should have expressed yourself more openly to people instead of just cutting them off. You hear about that sometimes too, and that's actually very Sagittarius and sometimes Gemini coded, where people kind of just, without saying anything, will like vanish, or they just will stop talking to you. And it's like, some of you need to be better at communicating, and I think going through this current or future phase will help you to understand the people who are actually meant to be in your life as opposed to not. And so going through an isolation period or a period of, yeah, just being more to yourself will help you realize who you actually want in your life. And also, because a lot of you, it feels like you don't really know who you are. So when you find out more of who you are by bits and pieces, it will help you be able to formulate friends and family groups in your life. Now let's go to religion and spirituality. It says your spiritual life is shifting because you're getting in touch with your honest beliefs. What worked for you in the past doesn't ring true for you now. This may cause confusion within your family or within yourself if you're leaving your religious tradition. Your loved ones may worry about your spiritual safety as you venture into areas they don't understand. It's not up to you to win your family's approval of your beliefs and choices. However, if you are following a spiritual teacher, do use discernment before leaping in with a full commitment. Yes. Make certain that everything is as it appears to be and that you retain your ability to exercise your free will. Most important, be sure that you are happy and on a spiritual path that is aligned with your sincere beliefs. Yeah, not just because of what other people or what you read online. It's like, hey, going here will help relieve all your worries, and that's what will help you open up. Use your own discernment. Additional meanings: marital conflict over different religious beliefs, blending a multi-faith family, returning to your childhood religious path, converting to a new religion, and spiritual study or teaching. And that second page is ending on page 77 in the guidebook. 7 is a number of fulfillment. It is tied to Sagittarius and Jupiter energy, so it really is a time of spiritual fulfillment. And I love how it talked about family and all that, because I think there are, again, people that you do need to probably cut out of your life or stop talking to or talk to less. But that doesn't mean it has to be everybody. For some of you, this could indicate that you do need to cut people out of your life, but then once you come back from this journey, such as if you were to be in India or Nepal, right? Then or like after moving to a place like that, then I think people will realize and come to their senses and be more accepting of you and of your own journey and your own path. So for some of you, that also resonates. Now, I want for you to think of a question. You don't have to think of a question. It could just be that you want to tap into the energies of this reading or when you should move. But here is this card I wanted to show you. It says next new moon. It is number 49. So with this, it could indicate that, I mean, you could move the next new moon or you could travel the next new moon. For a lot of you, I think though that this next new moon will be indicative of how it's a good time to visualize specifically. You know, there's different forms of manifestation. That new moon, try to look up or do any of your own personal new moon rituals, especially as they relate to visualizations. For some of you though, if you do want to write, you of course can, but there's a really, excuse me, a really big emphasis on visualizations. So think about what it would be like to move to India, to Nepal, or to a place similar to here. During that new moon, it could also just be a good idea to do a lot of research around that time to see if it would be a good fit for you to move to somewhere like India or Nepal. You'll get a lot of clarification on this next new moon, and just be very open to, in your third eye to any visuals that you get. I think spirit will try to send you visual signs through your third eye as to any next steps to take. For some of you, this next new moon could be a good idea to look into travel plans if you want to travel to a place like India, Nepal, obviously before moving there. What was I gonna say? For some of you, it could be about, yeah, researching just the culture and seeing if you connect with the culture or any of the religions, doing work to educate yourself on the religions or the spiritual practices in those places and the customs, like how people act every day, the type of work you can maybe get, words and phrases and gestures you shouldn't use, right? But this next new moon, you'll get a lot of clarity. Visually is the main thing I want to highlight. I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, 1A, for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with the stack, and you can update your comment again sometime in the future if there are any updates you would like to provide for us all. You can subscribe to my channel, it helps me out a lot. You can check out the other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my channel. And you can check out my ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR, that will be linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, 1A, and take care. Hello, Tubi, and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. The cards pulled here are Two of Cups in reverse, Two of Swords in reverse, Sage of Pentacles upright, Youth of Pentacles or Page of Pentacles upright, Youth of Cups or Page of Cups upright, and Beyond Judgment or the Judgment card in reverse. And then we have in Libra and then Neptune as well. I felt drawn to both of these cards when they flew out. And then the other cards here I will talk about in the guidebooks later, but it says 2 Alpha Centaurians, Foresight Planning Strategy, and this card is in the upright. And we have Whale, Soul's Path, Honor Your Soul's Purpose, and we have Healthcare Change. So, the reason why I have chosen Sweden and Canada, there's many reasons why. Oh, also there's another oracle card I'll get to later at the end of the reading. Anyway, this is a very positive stack, by the way. Well, maybe it's just because I'm biased. When you think about places in Scandinavia or you think about Canada, you think of a lot of openness and a lot of being free. And that's what I see here, where I think if you were to move to one of these places, you would be able to get a good fresh start, where you'd also get help from the government and your community of people that you meet to help lift you up and uplift you. Canada and Sweden are known to be very non-judgmental places where they're, well, statistically speaking, right? Where it's like there's people who are queer, there's people who are of all different kinds of races and genders and all different backgrounds. Even if, like, I don't know about Sweden, but I know in Canada, well, I don't know about as of lately, they're trying to reverse some things, but I know that there's a lot of people who immigrate to Canada who are from other countries who need help financially or who are in a bad situation as it relates to maybe war or internal conflict. Right? And so you hear about that with Canada. So Canada and Sweden are very much tied to this judgment or beyond judgment card because it feels like the people overall, as well as just the country and its inhabitants are very open to all different kinds of people from all different backgrounds, people who are different from them. They don't like people don't mind as much there. There's such diversity, especially if you look at the bigger cities in Canada, right? And I imagine in Stockholm, Sweden. I have more knowledge of Canada just because I live in the United States, right? So, yeah, but I imagine in Sweden as well, you hear about there being a lot of different kinds of people. Also, fun fact, I live in Minnesota, and the Minneapolis-St. Paul area is considered like the Scandinavian capital of the world. Or is it more so Norwegian? Scandinavian or Norwegian capital of the world outside of Scandinavia or Sweden or Norway. Yeah, so a lot of Scandinavian people live in Minnesota and North Dakota as well. Anywho, just thought I'd throw that in there. If you're looking for, if you're queer or if you're somebody who's not white, who's not cisgender, being in Sweden and being in Canada would be a very safe place to be, as opposed to other places in the world, right? And it just seems like when it says on here, vive la difference, right? So it's like living a different life, living a different lifestyle. There's a lot of also this stack, what it reads to me is that there's so many different options of things to do. But I think maybe I'll get to that in a little bit because I do want to talk as well about the in Libra and Neptune. Libra is very much about balance between people. It's all about the scales here. Libra is known to be very kind and open and accepting of people in general. And then we have Neptune. So if we were to turn that around, I guess I should say Neptune in Libra. To me, that indicates people being very generous, people being just specifically very kind-natured, but also people being very helpful. So if you were to move to a place like this, you'd get all of the help you need, again, from the government as well as from the people there. Neptune is also very much tied to the arts, and Libra in some ways can be because it is ruled by Venus. So if you were doing anything in your life that is artistic, being in these places would be it would be good to grow your artistic endeavors in these places. Okay. Neptune is also connected to, yeah, just dreams, goals, visions. And with Libra being there, I see that moving to either of these countries, you would be very balanced, have a very good work-life balance, as well as you would be able to achieve a lot in your goals, in the steps leading up to your goals, in your career, but also in your community. There's just a balance of everything in your life, but also a richness in everything in your life. So being happy with how everything is balanced out. And I think you'd also find a lot of like-minded individuals to you. And since Whale Soul's Path is there, I really think a lot of you could move to either of these countries as it relates to your career. Or you could just, say that your soul's path is being in one of these countries. You just have always maybe felt drawn to living in one of these countries. Oh, my cat just plopped down on the cards. So I will still try to read some of them, but Yeah, whale souls pass. So for that, it makes me think that a lot of you could move for career to one of these places. Uh, or it's just an indication from spirit that any type of career you're thinking of doing or that you are already doing, it would be a good idea to go to one of these countries. You will have all the resources that you need. Healthcare change makes me think that some of you maybe don't live in a place where healthcare is free or it's not as accessible. When you hear about Canada and the United States, one of the things people talk about is how Canada does have free healthcare. There is also private insurance, but everybody has access to healthcare, at least as far as I'm aware. And when I was doing research, I know that Sweden is pretty much the same way, where they have public access to healthcare as well as there's private insurance that you can get. So public insurance that everybody has access to as well, and it's government funded or taxpayer funded. And then private insurance that you would have to pay extra for. But for those of you who don't live in a place with free healthcare, this is a good indication of moving to a place like Canada or Sweden that has free healthcare. For some of you, it just means having better access to doctors. So maybe you'll live closer to to a city where there's a lot of specialists. For example, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There's not many people, even in the United States, that specialize in Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, maybe even in the world in general. But let's say you live somewhere now where if you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the next or the closest person to you who's a physical therapist who specializes in that, or even doctor who has enough specific training or geneticist, let's say that they're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So with this, it indicates that the next place you move to you should have better access to healthcare. And even specifically those specialty practices. Also, for some of you, maybe you're drawn to certain sports or exercise activities. Let's say you love skiing, you love snowboarding. Being in places like these, I don't know how many like resorts there are or anything, but I imagine you can do a lot more outside in the winter if you enjoy doing those kinds of things. There's better access as opposed to if you live like in the desert in California, right? So that could be indicative here too. And also with healthcare change, it makes me think a lot of you will be a lot more holistic in terms of what you eat and eat a lot more organic foods. You'll eat foods that are grown and harvested in Canada or in Sweden or wherever you decide to move to. There's a big sense that you'll be very connected to the food in your community. Also, I think maybe you'll live somewhere now where you can't try different. I know doesn't really relate to healthcare, but maybe you'll live somewhere where you don't have, like, let's say you live in the middle of Mississippi and you don't have access to trying different kinds of cuisines. At least in Canada, I'm not as sure about Sweden, but I imagine that this still relates, where there are restaurants of all different kinds of cuisines that you could try. And I think too, in Canada and in Sweden, there's more bans on certain foods, such as red dye 40 people talk about. So I think you'll have access to healthier foods, even if they're still, unhealthy foods. You'll have access to healthier foods, and also I feel like there will be more of an incentive to eat healthier. I don't know exactly what that means. Like, I don't know if it's cheaper, probably not, but I just felt like throwing that in there. And yeah, having access to different kinds of exercise methods. I can see you working out with people in your community as well. I see that being cool. Like you going to classes even with similar people. And with Alpha Centaurians here, it makes me think that a lot of you really have thought about moving to one of these places, and maybe you aren't thinking of moving there right now, but it's somewhere that you want to move to eventually. We do have the Two of Swords here in reverse, so I wonder if a lot of you are like, I don't know if it'll be worth it to move to one of these places. I don't know if it'll be right for me. I don't know if it'll be good for me to go away from family. I will say, even though there's indecision here, the King of Pentacles upright tells me that you will thrive if you move to one of these places. Again, all legend for entertainment purposes only. You live your life however you want to. You don't have to live in any of these places. Maybe you feel like moving to a place that's similar to one of these places, but not directly one of these places, right? But there is a sense that you, with the King of Pentacles upright, will thrive here. So Youth of Pentacles was pulled after that. Page of Pentacles upright. So not only when you first move to a place like Canada or Sweden will you thrive, but King of Pentacles is about longevity. And when we look at that foresight, planning, and strategy, if a lot of you are already doing that right now, I'm seeing that paying off. It's good for this group to do that, to think of all the ins and outs. Don't just impulsively move somewhere. Ooh, and now I'm looking at Neptune and looking at sacrifice too. So you will have to sacrifice, friendships, family ties, or just the security you have of knowing how your country operates better than any other country. And there's a lot of newness that I think scares some of you. So it's like, you don't know if it would be worth it, and you don't know if you'll get along with people. I don't know what it is, but let me just tell you, everything points to if you were to move to one of these countries, it would be so good for your overall health, King of Pentacles. Some of you also could make more money living in one of these places. I see you honestly having better friendships as well. For some of you too, the indecision or delays could be caused by the language barrier. So that's more so for Sweden. But if you really want to, I believe that you can do it. Or even if you're moving to somewhere in Canada that's more French speaking, right? Montreal. If you're moving there, then you really should learn French. But I believe that you can do it. And Swords is all about communication as well. So it makes me think that. Interesting. Oh. Okay. I don't even remember what I was gonna say. Okay. Two of Swords energy that I'm looking at now, it's like, first of all, I want to say that I think a lot of you are afraid about the connections you could make with other people here. Uh, I see it being a very good time, a very good environment with the Page of Cups here for you to. It's really interesting. I'm tapping into that Libra energy again too, where it's such a good balance because I think a lot of you probably like to spend alone time, and you seem like very creative and artsy types. So spending alone time and honing in on your craft, doing things by yourself, but at the same time, and I think a lot of people who you'll who you will befriend in these places will be the same way. But I see there being a good balance of also getting along with the people as well. So I really have to emphasize that you would get along beautifully with people. Two of Cups in reversal makes me think that if you are a creative type, there will be competition. Like it may be hard to make. That's why I think a lot of you maybe are in this indecisiveness because you don't know how your creative endeavors will work. Or maybe you're doing like a certain job now, but once you move to a place like Canada or Sweden, you wouldn't want to do the type of work that you're already doing anymore. You'd want to do something else maybe. So this is indicative from Spirit that if you're taking that leap of faith of doing something more creatively inspired, more artistic, that there will be competition, so I don't see it being easy, but with that King of Pentacles, we have to rely on that because I see, again, all alleged for entertainment purposes only, I see this being able to flourish. I think you may struggle with, I think a lot of you already struggle with that kind of thing now if you have any creative or artistic job that you have or that you want to have, but Spirit is saying there will still be competition anywhere you go, but going to either of these places will still be able to foster community. I see you actually being able to network very beautifully with people. I see you being able to uh, find people in the community who will uplift your art and you can uplift theirs. Like there's an equal exchange. Libra, Neptune, helpful, but balanced. Do you get what I'm saying? Some of you too, I wonder if part of the reason you wouldn't want to move to any of these countries is because you are in a romantic relationship. And so you know that your partner maybe would not want to move to either of these places. And I feel like if you were to move with your partner, for some of you, it wouldn't really actually work out great, where I feel like the other person would want to move back home, or they would like kind of regret the decision and take it out on you and like blame you for the decision, even though they are their own person. They can decide to do what they would like to do with their life. I see a lot of you loving being single here. I'll just say that. It seems like there's a lot of opportunities to meet people, but not have like long-term relationships, but not in a way where you are looking for a long-term relationship, where you just. I see that the people you meet romantically and just in general, helping you tap into your creativity, helping you to be vulnerable through your art. and use your art as an outlet, and more people will be drawn to your art, and that will continuously happen. It just seems like your creativity will flow so much. And also, I'm getting the vibe that you would just be so abundant, but abundantly balanced in all areas of your life. And I just see it being so beautiful. With that Sage of Pentacles too, like, I don't think I brought this up earlier specifically, but I could see you having your own garden. I don't see you really living anywhere rural. I see you living more like in the city, even if you're in Sweden. Like, I see you living more closer to like in Stockholm or something. So I see you living more in the city, whether that's downtown or just somewhere else in the city. And you really having a thriving social life and connecting with people, networking with people. And that will help you in your creative endeavors if you do have any. And if not, then people will really just be there to help support you in settling in. Uh oh my god, I love this energy so much. It's like a warm, calm hug that you get from your fairy godmother on a sunny summer Thursday night. Okay. Thursday, why Thursday? Wait, what day is Thursday again? Thursday is the day of Monday is the moon, Tuesday is Mercury. Is it Jupiter? No, Venus is Friday. Jupiter. Is today Jupiter's day? Not today, but Thursday. Because Wednesday, I think Jupiter is Thursday. Wait, which one am I missing? Sun is Sunday. Saturn is Saturday. Which one am I missing? Yeah, Mars is Wednesday, isn't it? Anyway, sorry, got distracted. That kind of reminds me though, with this reading, it feels like with that, again, the balanced energy, you'll have a lot of things to do. You'll have a lot of things to explore. There's a lot of new things that I see coming for you if you were to move to one of these places. But I see you also finding calm in the stillness and in the familiarity. So you won't be too thrown off guard, I think, by living in either Sweden or Canada. And you'll be able to assimilate. There will be a lot of new things, but Spirit is saying will be balanced out by the familiar. I think some of you could be not used to being around such kind people, right? That doesn't mean everybody's kind, but statistically speaking, like if you look at the data and what the polls show, people indicate that the countries in Scandinavia and Canada as a country, the people in these places typically are much nicer. And I hear Spirit saying like you're deserving of having kind people in your life. Aw. Like you're deserving of that. You're deserving of having people uplift you. I think some of you are surrounded by friends and family who don't really believe in your visions or who just don't understand. So that's also why I think some of you are kind of indecisive about potentially moving, right? To a place like Canada or Sweden where you've maybe been told what you should do with your life and it doesn't resonate with you, but you're like, well, if this is what everybody's telling me, then I guess I gotta just stay put. But there's a sense that this shift will cause so many other major shifts in your life if you were to move to one of these countries. Like, you'll just feel so much happier, so much more fulfilled. You'll have a lot more even romantic connections potentially. You'll be a lot more creative and intuitive as well. I think a lot of you will be very grounded, but also feeling very intuitive. So you'll feel safe every step of the way because you'll just know what to do. And with the foresight planning strategy card, like you have taken all the necessary steps. And it's like the balancing of Libra and Neptune, where Neptune is about being in your head and kind of in la la land. Libra is more about being grounded. Well, actually, Libra itself is kind of both grounded and in La La Land because Libra is connected to Venus. So Libra can have high expectations. And with Neptune too, I think a lot of you have so much high expectations that you place on yourself. So you just don't know if you'll make it or if you'll do good enough, be good enough. And that relates to you, I think, even if you don't move. Just like you as a person, you don't know if you do enough, if you are good enough. Spirit wants to let you know that you have the power, baby. You have the goods. You have the talent. You just have to believe in it more in yourself. But I think a lot of you, more than you realize, seek external validation. So Spirit is saying, if you need more of that external validation that's positive in nature, you'll get that in either of these countries if you move. But also I see a lot of, like I said earlier, the balance of the alone time, the peaceful silence. So I think with having those moments of silence and reminding yourself of your soul's path, and if you're doing what you feel intuitively you are meant to do, then that is what you should keep doing. And even doing that will relates to the healthcare change card, because I just see you being happier. Part of that is realizing you as a person, you are talented, you are enough. You shouldn't have to worry about what other people think of you. And that if you honor your soul's path, you are on the right path. If you trust yourself and if you trust in spirit, and there's a balance of those powers that be, then what is meant for you will come for you. I think that's a really big affirmation that a lot of you could say, is that what's meant for me is meant for me. What's meant to happen will happen. Connections that I am supposed to make, I will make. People who are not meant to be in my life anymore, they won't be in my life anymore, but I will be okay. There's a lot of what was I saying before though? I was gonna say there's a lot of strength in this pile, but with Alpha Centaurians. Yeah, so do enough planning if you were to decide to eventually move to one of these countries. Maybe you already live in one of these countries, but you'll just move somewhere else, I don't know. Or it's just indication that maybe you should stay put. But with the foresight, planning, and strategy, I see you being very, like, getting all your ducks in a row. Getting visas established, or I don't know how it works moving to another country. Getting currency transferred over, buying a home or renting first. You know, I see you being very smart. And your intelligence is being led during this time or sometime in the soon future or near future. It's being guided. Your intelligence is being guided by your intuition. Both should be in balance, because if you feel something is right intuitively and logically, it also makes sense, then you just have to keep going along with that and trusting in yourself. I see this being so beautiful for you. Ah, I love it. Okay, is there anything I want to talk about with Libra and Neptune again before I head out of here? I see a lot of you feeling comfortable in stepping outside of your comfort zone because you'll be in a new environment. Some of you are being held back because of the environment that you're in. You just feel like you need to. I don't even think a lot of you realize, like, getting away for a lot of you could be that missing piece, is the best way I can describe it. Or, so if bad things have happened to us in a certain place, or if we don't realize how much conditioning has affected us, going somewhere else, it can help you to realize, oh, this is what happiness actually feels like. And I'm looking at Libra now, and the beauty of, you'll find if you were to move to one of these countries, I think a lot of you will find that it's a lot more beautiful and peaceful of an environment, because places like Canada and Sweden still have a lot of access to nature. So I think, even though it's cold a lot of time, I think you'll find the beauty in it. You could be somebody who's drawn to the winter. Libra is associated with fall, so you could be drawn to fall as well. So you maybe will see a lot more fall colors. I think your environment that you're in really affects your creativity and it affects your mindset. Like for me personally, I tend to get more mentally unwell during the winter months just because, like, here in Minnesota, staying inside. But for y'all, I think you could really thrive being where you are, especially if you make those connections with people. Then there will be no need to worry. You'll be just fine. But I see you somehow connecting more with nature if you were to move to either of these places. And also with the wildlife, if you see more wildlife out in nature, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'll leave that there, and I'll go to the guidebooks now. So for number 2, I will only be reading from the upright messages, yeah. And so it says, I think I took pictures of both. So I'll show the front part now, but then I'll go now to the back part where it says the card meaning. So in the upright, it says strategy, negotiations, speculation, tactics, foresight, hindsight, designing, planning, schedule, time management, focus, direct. That pretty much taps into everything I had already discussed. Also, it does seem like, people in Canada, I mean, this could apply to many places, but people in the bigger cities in Canada and in Sweden, there's a lot of hardworking everyday people, and I think you'll notice that. Like, you'll find everyday people, but you'll also find people who are, like, I guess extravagant, I don't know, who are maybe they do something that you've never heard of, or you just have never met somebody with that type of career. I just see a lot of that in your environment, and that will help inspire you. Like being around all different kinds of people, not just the people who you would be around because they have similar careers to you. Let's go to whale in here now. I think is whale the last card? No. Oh yeah, no, wolf is. I already knew that. Okay, whale. Soul's path, honor your soul's purpose. It's time to stop fooling yourself and get moving on your soul's path. Pay close attention to the subtleties of your experience and listen very, very carefully to those urgings that are begging you to honor the deepest truth of who you are. Not what you think everyone else will approve of, but the path that heeds the voice of your soul that's been calling to you since you were born, before you were born. Every experience up to this point in your life has shaped you, and even the lives that you've lived before exert their karmic influence. At this point, you can no longer live your life driven solely by ego. Instead, it's important to consciously and consistently attune to your most profound sense of self and align with Spirit's intent. It will take courage and faith to dive into these depths, but you have indeed funded the power and the strength to do so. Claim the destiny that you know is yours and act on it now. Additional associations. Migration. Oh, are you kidding me? Like literally, I think out of all the stacks, some people look at or do these kinds of readings, but maybe it's just because they're curious what intuitively they feel most drawn to. But for you all, out of all the stacks, I think you are most definitely the most likely to move to either of these countries or a country very similar to either Canada or Sweden. But yeah, migration, devotion, communication, soul memory. I wonder if too some of you know people who already live in either of these countries and they could help you out too if you're looking on moving. Let's see what it says for healthcare change. This card is a loving sign for you to protect your health by acknowledging the changes in your body. Most likely, you'll seek professional advice from a physician, naturopath, dentist, optometrist, or nutritionist so that you can plan how to best manage your health. Stay positive and also proactive. Preventive treatment is called for as a way to empower you to stay healthy for many years to come. Additional meanings: get a second opinion, change healthcare providers, study healing, recognize that you are a healer. And for some of you, I was talking about the creative artistic endeavors. Healing modalities are involved in that, okay? So if you do Reiki, or if you do massage therapy, acupuncture, acupressure, those things are involved in that. Even doing stuff like tarot, anything that's healing in a naturopathic or holistic way, those things are also included here. So now I want for you to look at this card here on the screen, and I want you to think about a question, or you can think about nothing at all, and you can just tap into the messages that have already been relayed to you from the stack, and you can think about if there's anything that needs to be said to you. But this is a time period card, so I'll have you keep that in mind. Well, at least I think it, isn't it? Anyway, yeah. So think about that, and if you need to pause, you can right now. Otherwise, here is the card. It says 47. Oh, wait, 47. Isn't that was the card for wait, I gotta open this up to make sure. 47 was the number, one of the numbers in here for healthcare change, 47. So 47 could be an important number for you. Okay, so 47 indecision is causing delays. And that makes sense because of the Two of Swords being in reverse, where I think some of you are going back and forth. You're not quite sure. And I think there are a lot of things you're thinking about in a potential planning process that you think would hinder you being able to move to a place like this. Spirit isn't saying to rush into it, right? Into any decisions like moving to a different country. But they do want you to think about why you're being indecisive, because I think a lot of you do know the answers. Maybe you're just scared of certain answers about why you would move or wouldn't move. So just think about that. Think about the ways in which you are indecisive. So for you, my advice is to also write a pros and cons list, and also to write if there's any goals you would like to accomplish before you would ever move to any of these places, or if there's certain conditions that you feel have to be met. Think about if your career would thrive in these places. I feel like these are some of the best countries to live in terms of career, a thriving career, right? Think about also I have to highlight that nature aspect again. Think about the weather, like if you'll handle the weather okay. Some people maybe listening to this are from warm climates. To think about every single detail and think about why it's a good or bad thing and why it would be something you could or could not handle. And if everything is something that you could handle, even if there's some parts, not everything's going to be favorable. So think about the things that are unfavorable, but it's like, are they things you can handle? Are they things you could try to deal with? And I think a lot of you too should think of a backup plan in case if you were to move, like what you would do. Because I think a lot of you do like to plan things out. And so having a backup plan in mind could be helpful. Before I go, I'm going to get my angel numbers book real quick. I'll be right back and I'll read number 47 for you all. Okay, I'm back. What does it say in here? I've never read number 47 in here. I've read 48 for me, but 47. Procrastination. Get to work. Putting off what you have to do is not working. Your angels are giving you the fortitude to move through a task efficiently and without distraction. Several times throughout the day, repeat this mantra: I can do anything, then get to work. See, that's beautiful. Because I think with this indecision, like you're maybe procrastinating, putting off, like, should I move? Should I look into moving? It's like a lot of you are just like, that ain't for me. I shouldn't do that. But Spirit is like, if you really want to, you better get moving on it. It's not like you should rush, but don't put it off any longer. Start thinking about it more. You'll have even if you decide not to move, right, to anywhere, you just decide to stay put. At least you won't be indecisive anymore if you make decisive action. If you think decisively and plan out decisively the whys and why nots. Spirit is saying it's time to at least get to the root of that instead of having to be curious the rest of your life. Beautiful. So I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, 1A, sorry, not 1A, 2B, for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with this deck, and you can update your comment again sometime in the future if there are any updates you would like to provide for us all. You can subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. You can you can check out my other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my channel, including the pick a card reading for which state you can move to in the United States if you're feeling drawn to that at all, even though Canada, Sweden seems pretty great for y'all. And you can check out my ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR. That will be linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, 2B, and take care. Hello, 3C, and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. The cards pulled here are 10 of Pentacles upright, 5 of Wands upright, Guide or Queen of Cups in reverse, 6 of Swords in reverse, 5 of Swords in reverse, and it's really interesting the 5 of Wands upright and the 5 of Swords in reverse are mirroring each other here. And we have the World in reverse. And then we have for the Oracle cards in the 6th house. 6th house is very Virgo energy coded. Also, the other Oracle cards I will read later in the guidebooks, but I will say that here we have 5 Anunnaki. I don't think I've ever pulled this card, by the way. Controlling, drama, conflict of interest. Horse, freedom, you always have a choice. And windfall. And windfall is about financial windfall. It's about coming into a lot of material or financial wealth or abundance. And usually it's sudden and unexpected, but there is, with the Anunnaki card here, it reminds me that the energies are kind of conflicting here. Even the 5 of Wands upright with the 5 of Swords in reverse, and they're both mirroring each other. Oh, and then there is one Oracle card I will bring up later, and it deals with time frame or time period of timing. And then yeah, if you haven't seen, the countries listed here are Italy and Greece. So the reasons why I said those places, first of all, with the World in reverse, that could just indicate moving somewhere that's very different from where you currently live, or it could be somewhere that for a lot of you, I think you've never thought you would be able to live there unless you come into that financial windfall. So with Italy and Greece, a lot of people travel there. It could be somewhere that you've traveled to before, you've always wanted to travel to. And these places, like, people think about, "Oh, yeah, one day if I retire, I'll move to these places." So or if I, like, win the lottery, I'll just, like, live out in the country in these places. It gives very much that vibe, and Ten of Pentacles upright too. I think any windfall that could come to you could be in the form of family. Like, if you have a loved one that eventually passes away, I'm not saying it has to be anytime soon, right? I don't want anybody to pass away, but, for some of you, maybe your parents have been good at saving up and they just give, all their money to you. Maybe you're an only child, or maybe it gets split between just very select few people, and you're one of those people. And so for you, you could end up moving to one of these places after a loved one passes away. It could also be like a significant other, but Ten of Pentacles energy is very much family coded. So you could move after a family member passes away if you are able to sell off some of their assets, or if there's money in their will for you. So that would be a good time then to think about moving to one of these countries. But I do want to get into the energy of Italy and Greece. So I actually really want to talk about in the sixth house first, because when you think of sixth house, you even see in the card, if you're able to see, if you are able to see, but it has a bunch of whole foods in there. A lot of places outside of America, there's probably quite a bit of people listening to this who do live in America, or maybe in the UK as well. A lot of places outside of predominantly English-speaking countries, like such as in Europe, do have whole foods. If you think about Greece and Italy, they are known to be some of the countries with the most organic whole foods. People still making food from scratch, whether it's pasta from scratch, or people just going to a market every day, or getting food that day from the local store that comes from local farmers, and making a lot of things, even if it takes all day. You hear about that. That's also, though, because in these countries, there is the vibe of there being a lot of traditional values still. And Italy and Greece are both very traditional still, and the people still, like, there's a lot of traditional gender roles as well within a lot of these places. So when I talk about people making food all day, usually that is because of the woman and the family who are able to do that, who maybe don't work, or who don't work full time. Uh, but yeah, either way, I see that you have a lot more access to whole foods, even if you're not cooking a lot, just like the fruits and the vegetables. So I see you having access to that, and so these countries would be good for that. Oh, I was just gonna say, what was I just gonna say? Oh yeah, the traditional values. With the traditional values, I think that's why it could be difficult for you to assimilate here. I think as well, like with the I wanted to get into this Five of Wands and Five of Swords in reverse, because for me, it reminds me of families who fight a lot, but who also love a lot. So, like, let's say one day over supper, you and your, like, family, you live in Greece, and you're fighting a lot, and it causes people to raise their tempers? Get angry? I don't know. Um, when I what I know about by the way, I'm not an expert on any of these places or the people or their culture, but just from what I know, you can tell me if I'm wrong. There are a lot of people who get bad tempers and who have anger issues. So when people get mad, it's like I visualize and hear people like yelling and screaming at each other at the top of their lungs, making a lot of gestures, maybe even pushing and shoving, fighting physically. But then Five of Swords, I see that people make up right away, and that people kind of don't address when there's issues that still need to be resolved. It's like, okay, well, let's just forget about it, and I love you, and let's move on. It's like, that's not very healthy. That's actually pretty toxic. Y'all should, first of all, be more calm when you're disagreeing or arguing or fighting. Also, violence should never be involved, right? But I see there being big tempers in this place that you could potentially move to, which is why I thought of Italy and Greece. So if you're somebody who's more of a calm-natured person, I could see it being very hard for you to get along with people if, you get into a disagreement and people start yelling your ear off. I see that being very difficult for some of you. But when I was talking about the Five of Swords being in reverse and how people then forgive easily, it's not like it's even resolving the conflict, which is why there's issues. Even though I know Five of Swords in reverse can be about conflict resolution, I'm seeing this more as like always is problems, and a lot of times it's similar patterns of problems. So people fight, and then people just make up and are like, let's just forget about it instead of actually getting to the root issues of the problems. So if you grew up in an environment similar to that as well, then this could be very triggering for you to be in a place like this. Yeah. I'm looking at that Queen of Cups in reverse now. I have some messaging that's coming through for that, but let me just take some time here. I think the cultural parts of these countries, it's different when you're traveling versus actually living somewhere. I think the cultural parts will be very difficult for you all. It will feel hard to connect to the actual culture. There's so much learning you can do. Maybe you end up doing as much research as you can, but it seems like once you're actually living in it, it just doesn't feel right for a lot of you, or it just doesn't connect. Like the pieces don't connect, and maybe you still aren't. A lot of people are connected to surface level stuff or stuff like Greek mythology, right? But when it comes to things of the actual modern day to day, I think a lot of you, the culture will not. That's very different. So a lot of you will struggle with that and will struggle to connect with all of that. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Anunnaki with the controlling drama conflict of interest. So I wonder if, I don't know. Are you part of the drama? I don't really get the sense that it's mainly your fault. I just feel like, yeah, people in your environment, you just were probably raised in such a different environment, or you just are so different in some way from the people. Some people they move and they're able to be like, oh yeah, these are my people. Like they're a lot more aligned with who I am or my beliefs, and it seems like politics could be an issue as well, where I think a lot of you, even though we have horse freedom here, you always have a choice. I do think that a lot of you will struggle with the political environment of your country. So if you were to start protesting like certain laws and then your neighbors are like, "What? We didn't think you were like this. You moved here and you're going to be like this. You're going to be disrespectful to our politics and how we've always done things." So I would be extremely cautious about that. I think you could get easily into a lot of trouble as politics are brought up. And politics a lot of times do reflect a lot of people's morals and values and beliefs that they have with their family. There's a lot of traditional values I'm seeing here. Even the Six of Swords in reverse made me think that this is like these countries are kind of stuck in the past. And it also makes me think of Italy and Greece because there's a lot of ancient architecture. So not only are they stuck in the past in many ways as it relates to politics or beliefs, but I think it's also because of the architecture. If you go to Italy, there's a lot of ancient architecture around. There's a lot of grandiose, anything from small to grandiose, really. But you go to these cities that have these huge monuments, these huge buildings that are very old, and also there's a lot of religion and religious symbology. And that includes Greek mythology, right? But also, like, the Vatican is located within Italy. There's a lot of religious people, a lot of Christian people, especially in Italy. And so there's a lot of history with religion as it relates to Christianity, especially in Italy, right? And Greek mythology in Greece. So when you go to these places, oh wait, okay. So also the spirit is saying that there's just a lot of okay, how am I trying to phrase this? So with where you can move to, that's also why I thought about Italy and Greece, is because there's also like old historical pieces, buildings, museums that are also in these places that you could move to, which is why I brought up Italy and why I brought up Greece. But with the Six of Swords in reverse, that can also indicate, if you see the symbology, there's somebody on a canoe or a kayak. One person is just chilling in the front, one person is paddling. And the Six of Swords is all about changes that happen. Six of Swords can be about changes that we aren't expecting. It can be about changes that, like, putting off changes and transitions. It's about life transitions. So I wonder if you were to actually move to one of these places, it wouldn't be lifelong. I think some of you would maybe want for it to be, but I see this being somewhere you only live for like 1 or 2 years. Because I think you'd realize, okay, now I've learned about the culture, the people, and like how it is to live here, and now I'm out of here because it isn't really for me. The world in reverse could indicate that you could have issues living here before traveling here, even. Um, so I would be careful about that. It's funny though, because we do have one flaw. You know what this indicates to me too? Maybe it's like you come into an abundance of money, and so you just decide to travel for a bit, and so you stay for an extended period in Greece or Italy. It very much gives those vibes as well. Even though I think a lot of you would maybe see yourself living in these places forever, I don't know how happy you'd be. I feel like you'd miss a lot of what you came from, is how it comes across to me. You would reminisce and be nostalgic about what you used to have, and I don't even think it's necessarily about the relationships you have or that you used to have, but I think you'll be a lot more grateful for how people handle things before is the way it comes across. Like the way people were. I think your vibe matches better with where you grew up as opposed to Italy or Greece or a country that's similar. And then with horse freedom being here, you always have a choice. I think that's indication from spirit that you don't have to, like if you decide to move to one of these places, you always have a choice to move on from that. Like even if you think it will be your end all be all, you always have a choice to change your mind. You also have a choice to, or the ability to change your feelings about a country. Maybe you had so much love for Italy and then you move there and you're like, this really takes the sparkle away, and now the romance isn't alive. Like it feels like everybody's just mean to each other. Like I really do get the vibe that a lot of people in these countries could be just mean in general. I've tried doing research on that about like where in the world people are nice or not. I already know in Italy people say that Italians aren't really the nicest. In Greece, a lot of people are actually talking about how, at least as a visitor there or somebody who's a foreigner moving there, living there, that it's hard to assimilate. It's hard to get along with people and that people are kind of rude. So I would be careful about that. So because of that though, because the environment feels like it would be so different from what you're used to, it seems like a lot of you actually won't like living there long term. I think if you were to move there and then move away again, you'd be grateful for the time you spent there, but you'd be even more grateful for having gone elsewhere. I think there are pieces that you will take with you, such as the whole organic foods. You would start maybe eating healthier once you move elsewhere. And I think it will just help you realize where you do want to establish roots if it's different from where you originally thought. But the horse, freedom, is saying you can gallop away. You always have a choice. And I think spirit for you is saying that you're meant to explore a lot in terms of where you live anyway. So maybe a lot of you travel a lot anyway as it is. Yeah, in the sixth house, some of you also could have like a small farm while living in one of these places I see. Because a lot of people, in Greece, they have wineries. In Italy, I don't know, they just have a lot of. Are there a lot of farms in Italy? Let me look that up actually. I have my phone right here. I think of, wineries and such in Greece. Or not wine, what is it called? Not wineries, but like grape fields. I don't know. I guess wineries too. Uh, Does Italy have a lot of farms? I feel like they would. They have over 1 million farms across the country. Yeah, see, that makes sense. Because of all the Whole Foods and whatnot. But anyway, some of you could. I think I said this for like all the stacks, but you could have a garden of your own. But I could see you actually having like a small farm with animals as well. I could see that being fun for you. Even with you could have like a horse stable, you could be close to a horse, uh, or pasture, I meant to say. Somebody could own horses, like a neighbor, or you could just easily find horses out in nature and look at them or ride them or whatever. I see you being within these places more out in nature, so definitely not like stack 2. I don't even remember what I said for stack 1. But I see you not being directly in the city. I see you moving somewhere where there is a lot of land, like it's giving very rural vibes. Some of you maybe aren't used to that. And with the world in reverse, I think a lot of you won't be used to. I think a lot of you, you know what? I think a lot of you would feel pretty lonely and isolated. And that would be made worse by these 5 of Wands and 5 of Swords in reverse energies, paired with Queen of Cups not really connecting much with the people. And again, I don't want this to seem bad. Like, if you were to end up moving to these places, I think you actually still should. I think you'll learn a lot. And I think it will just help you. There are pieces of, like, the nature and the animals and the food, I think especially that you'll like. And I see you being able to afford your living circumstances as well. And with Windfall, a lot of you shouldn't have to worry about money and where you live, honestly, but I just see you being good except for the people. I think the people are what's gonna. I think the weather, you would love the weather. I think you really love that. I just think when it comes to the people, that's where it'll be hard, and that's where it'll help you realize how much human connection really matters to you. And I think you'll probably decide where to move after that, to a place where you think you'd best get along with people. That doesn't even mean moving back to your hometown. I think if you were to move to Italy or Greece, you would move somewhere not your home country, somewhere else completely different, and seeing if it works to live there. For some reason, I bring up Japan. I don't know why. Because maybe just Japan is very different energy. I don't know. Interesting. Interesting that I would bring that up, though. And 6th house, too. I think if you were to move to any of these places, you could end up doing just like a general job. So maybe you know you're not going to live in these places forever. You could work just like at a grocery store. You could work somewhere where you don't need a college education. That doesn't mean you couldn't do a job that you're college educated in, but I don't see you doing anything out of the ordinary in terms of work. So you want to do something completely different, like working at a vineyard, right? Working with the great fields. I don't see you doing anything as it relates to the culture specifically for work. I see you mainly sticking to what you already know, or doing something where it's like back to basics. For some of you, that could be why it's difficult too, because if you have to do customer service work, I think a lot of you would struggle. I think some of you it could be because you struggle with the language. So if you speak English, for example, and you go to these places and you learn the language, it could be hard for you to connect with people, because I think a lot of you would struggle with fluently and quickly enough speaking and knowing the language. So I think that's where it will be hard to connect with other people and to relate to other people. But also just regular old core values as well would be why. And I think hmm, yeah, I think a lot of what has influenced a lot of you obviously is probably the like social media, like what we see in movies, what we learn about Greek mythology. It's like, oh, that. And a lot of you maybe have felt like you've had past lives here. Sometimes we can be drawn to past life locations and we can go there, but that doesn't mean we have to live there, you know? Maybe you can just visit every once in a while. And maybe that's also the messaging that I'm getting here from Spirit, where maybe a lot of you could move to these places. I know this is about where you should move to, but then it being more just like a very prolonged vacation. Like, I could see you having 2 to 4 weeks off of work and going to one of these places, and that could be almost just like living there just because you're there for so long. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else I have to say before I move to the guidebooks? Anything else at all? Mm, that 6 of Swords is calling to me again. I haven't talked much about the 10 of Pentacles just because, yeah, everything I already talked about I feel aligns with that card. But I feel like The Six of Swords. I wonder too if a lot of you, if you were to move to any of these places, if you wouldn't have done enough planning. So that's also why it could be hard to assimilate that with the world in reverse. A lot of you could be impatient if you decide to move somewhere, whether it's either of these countries or somewhere else, even in your country, right? It seems like maybe you don't do enough planning, so that could be where you get into trouble as well, even maybe legal trouble. So I would really be careful about that. Also, the world in reverse indicates to me that, yeah, it just won't be as peachy as you were expecting, won't be as romanticized once you're actually living somewhere as opposed to looking at pictures online, consuming media about any of these countries, or even traveling to these countries. Moving to a country and like living in that country is very different. With windfall though, I wouldn't worry about money because I feel like, well, I feel like some of, or I feel like many of you will be living somewhere where you will have plenty of money. So I know I talked about financial windfall and abundance coming to you. If that doesn't end up really happening, I still see you then finding somewhere where the cost of living matches really well with you and that you would be like in the upper half of the tax bracket or whatever people say elsewhere. Like you would be just fine living within your means and having plenty of excess money wherever you do decide to live, especially if it is in Italy or Greece. But also I see you living somewhere that is more minimal and very cottage style almost because of the farming and gardening and all that. But let's go to number 5 in here, and I am only going to be reading from the upright card meanings. And so it says conflict of interest, drama, duality, controlling, wanting to always be right, sibling rivalry, black and white thinking, separation, disagreements, misogyny, team sport, enemies, polarized. Yeah, I just think there are so many traditional values instilled within Italy and Greece still, so a lot of you could really struggle with that. Even if you're like a man, you don't deal with the misogyny directly. I think there's a lot of things that will still directly impact you, even if it's just simply that you moved there and you're not a native Greek or a native Italian, or you're not good at speaking the language. I think you'll struggle in those areas likely. Sorry. Now, horse. Freedom. You always have a choice. Let go of the illusion that you're somehow a victim. Know that you always have a choice in any and every situation. Take responsibility for the consequences of that choice and stop holding on to any beliefs that you have to somehow suffer through or endure the circumstances of that choice. Once you fully allow this reality, you will automatically shift into experiencing greater control over your life. You can choose to do whatever you want, to wander about or to stay in place, to go forward, backward, or even sideways, to be dependent or autonomous, to continue doing what you're presently doing, or to alter your choice, perhaps to pursue Spirit's calling. Your soul has made a choice to incarnate into the body and being of the one you are. Once you surrender to that fact, it becomes even more difficult to play the victim, and your ultimate trust in life becomes magnified. You can choose to hear and respond to that inner voice, or to quell it and run from it. So choose. Do what makes your soul sing and do it with gusto and passion. Additional associations: integrity, compromise, speed, and agility. I think compromise is a good word for you all too, compromising. Because maybe you want to move out of your home country, but there's a compromise of moving somewhere that best fits with you, or where spirit has been trying to call you better. And even though I think the romanticization of these countries could be taken away from you living there, I don't see it being a bad thing. I just see you being more realistic in that sense. Some of y'all are maybe not the best with your realism and your logic, I guess, is what I would say. Something else I wanted to. But also, we have hear your inner voice. You have to respond to and hear your inner voice. Yeah, I think a lot of you kind of just maybe go with the flow too much, or you don't think about things deeply enough. So I think this move could help you to think more deeply. And there's something about the passion or something. Did I say something about it's a passion about something? Some of you, I think, also don't really have much for passion in life. So I think spirit, like moving to either of these countries, could help you with that. Maybe it's because of all the impassioned people that could be surrounding you, and that could help you bring out your passion, even from other people it's more of a negative connotation. By the way, I'm not saying people in Greece and Italy are bad. I'm just talking about like based off of the energies and intuitively thinking about countries that could relate to the energies. That's why I bring up these certain points. Every country, everywhere you live will have negatives and drawbacks. Okay, windfall. On page 100, a number of completion. Nice. A positive change in your finances is indicated by this card. Although the newfound abundance may be unexpected, it definitely serves a purpose in your life. Your prayers for support have been heard and answered, and now it is your role to utilize the windfall in the most beneficial way. Also, some of you could move to either of these countries for work specifically. Like, that's the reason why you move. Pray and meditate to have the strength to say no to distracting influences that could squander your resources. You have access to divine wisdom and to guide your investments so that they continue to support your health, happiness, and mission. Most of all, do not allow any fluctuations in your finances to stress you, as you have the power to be at peace no matter what's going on around you. And as you emanate peace, so too do you attract all that you need. Additional meanings: paying off debts, a healthy and positive change in spending habits, and learning how to receive. Learning how to receive is, I think, very helpful for you all too. And that means and includes receiving information. It doesn't have to be just about receiving material goods. I think it's about receiving information and being intuitively guided, because a lot of you are very much so disconnected from that side of yourself where you feel like you don't know what's up and what's down, what's left, what's right. And so spirit wants you to, like, if you feel called to any of these countries, then do that and then be like, okay, was that my intuition or was it just some other romanticized thinking that I have, and maybe it was your intuition, but now you're like, okay, now where am I being intuitively guided? Some of you, maybe your intuition you feel like has led you astray, but then that's not your intuition. Or it was meant to teach you a lesson, right? If you're having to encounter something that you don't appreciate, and it's like, well, sometimes we have to go through things and learn lessons, right? So that doesn't mean hate spirit or hate intuition, but yeah. I will now have you look here at this card. I want for you to think about a question, or you can just tap into the energies of the messages I've talked about in this reading. So this is about timing. So think of a question or just think about nothing and receive. And here is the answer to the card. So it says today, which when I pulled that, I'm like, and it's number 52, by the way. 52 could be important for y'all, the number. For some reason, today was pulled. And I'm like, should I just pull a different card? I'm like, no, Spirit really wants this to be laid out. So I wonder if a lot of you, or some of you at least, already live in these countries, or you have already moved to these places, or you are already in the process of, moving to one of these places, or having recently traveled to one of these places, right? This could be something where you dream about moving to one of these places every single day. So I think Spirit also wants you to, today, like right now, think about if you have had these visions and dreams for a long time, or these goals, do they align? And this is more than just these countries involved. Anything in your mindset, any goals you have. Are these things that you hold on to from the past still relevant to your life today? If you've wanted to move to Italy or Greece for a long time, let's say, and you continue to try to manifest and have those things be pushed into existence, and maybe they still haven't happened yet for whatever reason. There may be a reason why that those events haven't happened yet, but it also could just be that Spirit wants you to reflect right now and think about anything from the past that you still hold on to, that you still are trying to manifest, or that you are still working toward. Think about if they actually make sense moving forward, to continue to try and incorporate into your life, to continue to try to work for or toward. Does it actually make sense? Is it actually something that you still like and or want? Or is it something that you just feel you keep needing to hold on to because of any past thoughts or beliefs, any past goals that you've had? Spirit is saying, with the horse, it's okay to change your mind. So today they really want you to reflect. And they want you to reflect on if these are still things that you like. It's like how today they want you to think of how can you take steps to get there? Are you doing enough to take steps to get there? Because I think there's not laziness, but I think a lot of you just think it'll happen one day and then boom, it's there. So Spirit is like, if you actually want this to happen, whatever country you end up moving to if you want to, how will you actually take the steps to get there? Do you know what it means to move to another country, all the legalities that are involved? Do you know about what you are supposed to do? But it's really a time of reflecting on what is meant for you and think about if moving to a country like one of them that was listed is meant for you. Okay. And with today, like I don't think a lot of you, if you're not living in one of these places, I don't think a lot of you would move there today, right? Also, I think with the today card, it does insinuate the fact that a lot of you are kind of more impulsive instead of thinking things through or even trusting your intuition. There is a fine line between impulsivity and trusting your intuition and taking risks either way, with impulsivity in mind, or I guess not in mind, or intuition involved. So Spirit wants you to reflect also on the ways in which you are impulsive and how you can reverse those habits, how you can instead focus on healthier habits where you are more present and you are able to reflect. Get to a place where you can be self-reflective and where you aren't scared of your thoughts, where you aren't scared of any feelings that come up. So work on any impulses that you have, any snap judgments that you make. But I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, 3C, for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with this stack, and you can update your comments sometime in the future if you have any updates for us all to read. You can subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. You can check out the other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my channel. And you can check out my ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR. That will be linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, 3C, and take care. Hello, 4D, and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. So we have here the Chariot upright, 9 of Swords upright, 3 of Pentacles upright, 7 of Swords upright, the Sun upright, and then the only one in reverse is the High Priestess, or the Intuitive in reverse. And then we have for the Oracle cards Mercury, and for the other Oracle cards, I will read in the guidebooks for them later on, but we have 35 pentagram in reverse, and it says harmony, protection, and idealism. And then we have Moose, authority. You know what is best for you. And then we have healing from the past. And there's another oracle card we will get to later on, and it is about timing. The timing of potentially moving or anything else as it relates to this stack, or anything really. And then the countries that I have identified as being able to match the energy of this spread are Mexico, and then we have the United Arab Emirates. I probably say that wrong, sorry. But also known as the UAE. So, where to get started? I want to say that there's quite a bit I want to say, actually. I'll start with the Sun, just because that's pretty self-explanatory. With the Sun, it immediately made me think that this is somewhere that, like, I'll be talking, of course, how this spread relates to the country. So I thought that the Sun would relate to the fact that the countries chosen would probably be somewhere warm or warmer. So obviously, the UAE and Mexico are warmer, at least compared to where I live in Minnesota, because they're closer to the equator, all that. Isn't that crazy how the closer you are to the equator, it's warmer? Is it really that crazy? Probably not. Anyway, uh, I think that based off, again, I'm not an expert on these countries. From what I know already, as well as some research that I did before this video, it feels like the people who inhibit I'm trying to be careful with my words here. The spread is saying that where you will move to, the people that live there are not the best. Like, they seem to be pretty sketch. And this doesn't mean every single person, but just, like, as a whole, it seems like people... First of all, 3 of Pentacles gives me family and community energy, so it makes me think that the people of this country, of these countries, really care about family connections, care about caring for their families. Does that make sense? They are conscious about caring about their families and thinking about long-term, goals for their families or, like, where they see their parents living. I was seeing people generationally living together in the same household. So people living with their parents, grandparents, all of that. And when I was looking at the spread with the Seven of Swords, that indicated to me that the people here are sneaky. And I'll tell you why this relates to both countries. I think it relates to both countries because when I think of Mexico, they have a lot of issues going on politically as well as with the cartels. And that really impacts, I mean, the cartels really do impact politics. Aren't some, like, cartel members specifically political leaders? Anyway, I'm not an expert, but I know that the cartels run a lot of society in Mexico all throughout. And it can be hard to travel throughout Mexico. It can be dangerous if you are a visitor, if you don't speak very good Spanish. And so I think that this really ties in there because in Mexico because the cartels really do run everything. They do run politics. They run companies, businesses, individual people and entities. A lot of things are run by cartels. And if you know much about cartels, they're not, generally speaking, I would say it's safe to state that people who are in cartels are not great people. Uh, they don't do good things. And it can just be very dangerous there. And that also ties in with the Nine of Swords too, where I feel like the countries I chose them because it can be I'll speak on for Mexico first. It can be dangerous to be there because of the cartels. There's a lot of different forms of trafficking, think people as well as substances that go on within and throughout Mexico and importing and exporting. So, because of that, I think a lot of people worry for their safety in Mexico. And so, if you were to move to Mexico, that is something to keep in mind. And the chariot refers to the fact that there's still a lot of, even though there are, um, do I want to bring that up now? Maybe I'll bring that up in a little bit. If I, no, I should remember, yeah. The High Priestess in reverse makes me think that, how do I explain this? Like the people that live in Mexico cannot, well, first of all, witchcraft apparently in certain parts of Mexico are very big. What is it called? Brujeria? I want to make sure I say that right. Brujeria, is that what it's called? I know people who have talked about that before, how they know people who are practicing witches in Mexico. Brujeria, the band. Yeah, brujeria is witchcraft in Spanish. And it blends elements of Afro-Indigenous beliefs, yes. So, brujeria, is that what that's what it's called? A bruja or a brujeria witch. Okay, so bruja. Oh, it has a lot of stigma behind it though. And that is true because I think a lot of people associate that with dark magic. And that's also why I was going to bring that up because there is a lot of magic that happens there. Like a lot of people, I'm trying to be careful with my words. Uh, a lot of people who live in Mexico, and people in a lot of Spanish speaking countries are Catholic, are very religious, but there's still elements of, there's even people who are still very Catholic or religious who also practice witchcraft, who practice brujeria. So with the intuitive being in reverse, it reminds me of that. And there's a lot of connections to folklore in Mexico. If you think about, not the lady in black, what is she called? Oh, La Llorona, the crying lady. Uh, I just feel like in general, people in Mexico are very intuitive. And other than intuitive or the high priestess is in reverse, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I just think there probably are. Oh, and also there's just a lot of history, I think. Obviously, throughout the world, but I'll just say throughout the Americas, there's been a lot of the intuitive or the high priestess in reverse makes me think of all of the Like, it makes me think of witches who maybe place curses on people because of how am I trying to word this? Because of the overtaking of indigenous cultures, if that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of that where the indigenous people, when white settlers, European settlers started coming in, I wouldn't be surprised if there were certain spells that were to be played. You know what? I'm gonna look this up too, because I feel like there were probably certain spells that were trying to be placed upon these people. Did ancient I know there's like the Mayans and the Aztecs. Let's say did ancient Mayans place spells on the white settlers? And also I think nowadays too people often I mean people in Mexico are very connected to the dead as well, like, just connected to spirit in general. You think of how in the United States we have Halloween, but in Mexico, they have Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, where they honor the people who have passed on. So there's a very strong connection to death and to celebrating those who have passed on. People have altars, vigils, um, for people who have passed, and also a lot of people have their own altars for either separate or combined with past on loved ones of Lady Guadalupe, right? I'm sorry, I'm not Hispanic, but I do know some things. Lady Guadalupe. And yeah, Lady of Guadalupe is basically Virgin Mary, known as the Virgin of Guadalupe, is a Catholic title of the Blessed Virgin Mary associated with four Marian apparitions to Juan Diego and one to his uncle. So yeah, Lady of Guadalupe is associated with being, I guess, Virgin Mary. Um, but yeah, so all I can find is that ancient civilizations or indigenous civilizations throughout Mexico did practice magic and witchcraft. Of course, people all over the world have, but there's a strong link to that and how it impacts, I think, some of the witchcraft that is still practiced today. Anyway, there's so much I could get into with all that. I probably should just not dive into too much. But that's just what I was saying with the intuitive ties and the spiritual ties of the Mexican people with also with their history too. But I think with this being reversed, it indicates that there's a dark history in Mexico, right? And so yeah, that's just part of what that indicates. Moose Authority, when I was pulling that, and I already knew that Mexico probably was going to be one of the countries, I'm like, authority makes sense because of the cartels, but also it says, you know what is best for you. So that's really interesting. I'll have to go into the guidebook more later for that. Because I think it's mainly just about taking leadership. Maybe you, for some reason, living in Mexico would have more freedoms in some way. So that's something to consider, like more human rights, more more of an ability to practice your religion or spirituality. I don't know. Uh, so I'll read in the guidebook later for that. But also we have Mercury here. And to me, do I want to bring this up now? Yes. Okay. So this also relates to the UAE, where, by the way, Dubai is the capital of the UAE. Pretty sure. I don't. Sometimes I make mistakes. Let me look up UAE. Oh, UAE. The capital is Dubai. Yes. No, the capital is Abu Dhabi. See, it's because I looked it up. Dubai is in the UAE. Abu Dhabi is the capital. Okay. So, and the UAE, in terms of landmass, is very small. But what I'm about to say relates to both Mexico and the UAE. And if you know about the UAE, well, if you know about Dubai, then you know that there's been a lot of wealth and generational wealth that has accumulated there, which is technically opposite of Mexico, where I think it's not as much about accumulated wealth through family ties, but in both Mexico, at least in certain parts of Mexico, and then throughout the UAE, especially in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, over the years, the wealth of these countries has continued to flourish. And I will say, I'm pretty sure Mexico is still classified as a developing country just because there is an imbalance. But that's what brings me to the point of gentrification, where a lot of the spread points that out to me. I think I talk about this in at least one of the other spreads, maybe the first one, I don't even remember what it was. When I'm doing these readings, I don't really remember what much of what I'm talking about because it's like again the zone. But I do remember that in one of the spreads, I was talking about how there's a very big divide between the upper class and the lower class, and that there's like a diminishing middle class. And I would say that that's definitely more the case for these countries as well, where the chariot, this is what I was going to say earlier, the chariot represents progress that's been made for both of these countries, where even though Mexico is a developing country, there's a lot of people who are rich in Mexico, even just besides the cartels, where although the cartel is very rich, but there's also gentrification. People specifically talk about this as it relates to Mexico City, which is the capital of Mexico, and like how Washington D.C. is the capital of United States. And then for Dubai, that's more so generational wealth, and also a lot of people in that area or in the Middle East have been able to accumulate generational wealth as it relates to oil. And, there's debates about whether or not oil should be used as energy or not. I don't know how much I want to get into that, but I will say that ties in partly to how this pentagram is in reverse, where it's like, I think, where do I want to go first? I want to talk about the gentrification still, because people in Dubai, for example, or just anywhere throughout the UAE don't really bring up gentrification, but people do talk about how there's a divide and how there are a lot of people who are emigrating to Dubai, for example, or Mexico City, who already have a lot of money and it's making it more expensive. These areas that once were not as expensive or rich or wealthy. So the people who are already native to these different parts of these countries, then it just becomes harder for them to live and to afford anything. And it becomes harder for people who are in poor financial circumstances to get out of that in these places if you don't already come from a place of wealth, for example. Uh, yeah, so that's really something I wanted to bring up. So that's why I connected these two countries to this stack, because that's what I was getting. We do have healing from the past, though. So that indicates to me that even if there's still sketchy things going on, there's a lot of improvements that are still being made so that people maybe can have more opportunities. But I think a lot of those opportunities come to the people who are already rich, who already have an advantage in some way. So that's unfortunate, but I feel like on a positive note, there's still benefits to what is going on economically in both of these countries right now as an outsider's perspective. Again, the Nine of Swords energy, there's still a lot of worry and fear when it comes to the UAE. I think that it's just because there's so much. It reminds me of how there's so much power. And I feel like if you make one wrong move there, your life could be ruined. And it just also feels like there's so much to worry about because there is so much competition in the UAE. If you don't come from a lot of wealth already, and if you maybe have worked really hard, you've made more money and you're trying to make more money or become more successful, have a name for yourself be made in the UAE, it feels like it will be very hard to maintain. It feels like it's very much cutthroat. Uh, and again, one small misstep, and you could probably become houseless or something. I feel like people could easily turn on you if you say the wrong thing. That's very Mercury energy here. We have the Mercury card. And so you have to be very careful with your words. I think it would be actually a good idea to network in these places. So if you were to move as it relates to your career, I think it would be good to network. Uh, it would be easier to, if you are good at networking, establish your career, establish a name for yourself in these countries, in these communities. But if you're somebody who isn't very business oriented, I see that it could be very hard for you to keep up and it could be hard for you to afford things. Also, with Mercury, it indicates that a lot of you could be very fast moving. If that makes sense. Like you're very quick on your feet and you're able to, how do I explain? Like you're just able to, if there's any shifts, you're able to be on top of them. Some of you maybe aren't like that, but that is the energy I'm getting of these countries where you always have to be on top of things because if not, then you could easily slip behind and there could be issues there. Interesting. For some reason, I was getting visuals of basically me. Like, I want to live somewhere that, like California one day, right? Just because it's a lot warmer there. It's better for allergy season. I wonder if living in these places would be better for y'all. Oh, interesting. Yeah, because of your physical and or mental health. You know, some people like me, I deal with seasonal depression. So when it's winter, when it starts snowing, when it's really cold. So some of you maybe could heal from being in these countries because it's much warmer and you can also get more vitamin D. Some of y'all are vitamin D deficient. So the sun is here to say, hey, be outside more. Also, I see you doing more outdoor activities in general. But I see you not being able to really trust people in these places. I just see people not having the best intentions. You would have to be careful going down there these places where especially if it involves career or business or money matters, just don't trust people really. Have kind of a you can still like engage with people and like progress your ideas, but don't be so close that people have certain information from you, if that makes sense. Uh I could just oh, and earlier when I was pulling cards, I think people could easily take advantage of you. That very much Seven of Swords, Mercury energy, Nine of Swords upright. Like people, I think if you go to one of these different countries, if you don't already live there, then this indicates to me that, yeah, people try to take advantage of you and try to gain your trust because you're more vulnerable when you're new to a place like anywhere. When you move to a country, you're more vulnerable, and if you don't know about certain laws, like how taxes work or anything, then people could maybe tell you one thing, but then use your vulnerability to as a disadvantage. So I see that if you were to move to one of these places, you would just have to be extremely careful for the connections you make. I see that if you can afford it, that actually building a family here could be good though in any of these places just because I see you doing a lot of outdoor activities. And I see that even though there's a lot of people you'd have to be careful of. Ooh, and with the High Priestess in reverse, yeah, I think a lot of you run the risk of trusting the wrong people. So if you learn to develop your intuition more strongly, then it could be a good idea to build a family or move a family in these areas. And there's something with that Three of Pentacles I have to say. For some of you too, also I will say, Three of Pentacles to me is very religious energy as well. Because the traditional card, they're like in a church. And so, for some of you, maybe you are very religious. So, if that's the case, moving to Mexico would make sense. The UAE, I think most people are practicing Muslims there, right? Let me see. Dominant religion in UAE. Islam is the majority and official religion, which constitutes around 75% of people. So yeah, 75% of people are Muslim. There are, I did just see something on Reddit where somebody was saying that out of all the countries where Muslim is a dominant religion, this is just based off of one post. It's saying that in the UAE, people are the least Muslim. So take with that what you will, but so if you are Muslim and you're wanting to go somewhere that's more up your alley in terms of that religious practice, then I don't know if UAE would make sense for you, but that is something to consider. I feel like family values, religious values could be very important to the country that you move to or the country that's laid out here, so it makes sense then for both Mexico as it relates to Catholicism and Christianity, and then for the Book of Islam or being Muslim in the UAE. Hmm. Yeah, so very good for business endeavors, only good for family endeavors to move to either of these places if you really trust your intuition. Because other than that, if you're like, I was gonna say, if you're very religious, going to church, that could be a good place for you to be. If you like going to church, I feel like you'd build a strong religious community. Maybe I do kind of want to take back what I was saying about family. If anything, I guess maybe this is somewhere more so you would retire or go to if you live alone. I was trying to get with that just because of Three of Pentacles. Sometimes with the imagery of the cards, I like to take that in as well. But it does seem like, ooh, oh, I was just gonna say maybe it's not as conducive for that kind of thing. For the UAE, I want to talk about, like, it's necessarily, I don't think of it being a dangerous place to live in the UAE from what I know, but I just think the most dangerous part is who you can trust. Because a lot of people are there for self-motivated interests, for making a lot of money, for growing their businesses, expanding their companies. So I would just be careful about trusting the right people because not everybody has the best intentions. Like again, that's everywhere, but I have heard about things like that for the UAE. And for Mexico, it's more so just like the cartels and other forms of crime through trafficking, especially be careful. Like if you're a woman, be careful, especially. Learn the languages if you're going to move to these places as well, because I think it'll be hard for you to assimilate if you don't. I talked about that in some other stacks as well, but it really does ring true, where I feel like you'll be more easily deceived if you don't learn the language well. So Spirit is saying to learn the language well. I think, yeah, and with the Cheery, I think these countries will continue to expand and grow. Uh, in ways that could probably gentrify different areas more. But I also see it hopefully providing good economic stability for the countries. I don't know. That's not saying gentrification is good. By all means, it's bad that gentrification happens, but hopefully there's some good that comes from that. But with the cherry, I do see just developments overall within these countries happening. Yes. I feel like Spirit wants me to talk more about the friends and families part. This could be somewhere that you have ancestry within. So you could be Hispanic or you could be I don't know what it's called, the UAE. You just could have like ancestry from the UAE or like that region anywhere near there. So that could be why you feel drawn to these places or why you would want to move to these places. Spirit is saying if you play your cards right, you can make some really good, strong friend connections that are safe people for you, but it'll be hard. So, just keep that in mind because of the who to trust parts. Okay, let's go to the guidebook and let's go to here. I'll only read what the card meaning is. So in reverse, it says idolizing, putting on a pedestal, worshiping, materialism, over, under, protective, and insecurity. And all of that really just makes sense with what I've already talked about and discussed. A lot of you should have better protections in place. And I don't want to say, by the way, like it makes me think of, I live in Minnesota and people talk about how in the Twin Cities, like the native native Minneapolis peoples don't like, or people who have been there. Oh, 234, my time, make a wish. Okay. People don't like how it is discussed that downtown Minneapolis is like dangerous and like you shouldn't walk down alone. So I don't want to add to that. I know a lot of people talk about how Mexico is dangerous. Mexico seems still like a very beautiful place, right? It's very rich in culture. I don't want to perpetuate any negative stereotypes. I am just trying to, though, connect this spread to countries, and so if what the spread is telling me, if they're telling me these different characteristics, like, and I'm choosing countries and I have to assign them to some, right? But I do see positive with the chariot here, like the forward moving progress. And that doesn't mean all people in any of these countries are this way that I've discussed or are bad, right? I'm not saying that. These are just things to consider, the things I'm talking about and how I'm relating them to the cards. And so I don't want to say that all of Mexico is bad and that, like, there's so many parts of the United States that are quote unquote dangerous as well. So, but it's just something to keep in mind. You should still be prepared in case of any ill intent being directed towards you. And that's anywhere you go, but especially for the spread if you were to move to any of these countries for different ways, right? But anyway, or for different reasons, I should say. Now we have Moose, authority, you know what is best for you. In spite of the pressures from others, your own conditioned fears, embedded shame, and advice from the best of friends, ultimately it's up to you to make the choices you make. Realizing this fully not only gives you greater freedom and autonomy, but also places the responsibility squarely on your shoulders for those choices. Your karma has brought you to this place in your life, and it's time to trust your inner guidance above and beyond any other counsel you've gotten. It's your life and you can do whatever you choose. Right, so even like if you decide to move to one of these places one day, if you just feel drawn to any of these places, Spirit is saying, like, no matter what I'm saying, anything that might be negative in nature, it's ultimately up to you. It can still be useful to listen to others and seek help when you need it. However, no matter what suggestions or ideas you get, see if and how they resonate with you. Don't blindly trust anyone's input, even me. Instead, use your intuition and intelligence to see what fits and what doesn't. There's no need to be obedient to anyone anymore. You're it. The only exception, and it's a major one, is to hear the voice of the Creator as it manifests in any number of ways, inside and outside of you. That is the ultimate voice of authority and will never steer you wrong. Additional associations: warrior, self-esteem, balance, fearlessness. That's actually beautiful. So, whether you're going to the UAE and you're trying to compete with these other competitors, Spirit is saying if you believe in yourself to do it, if you believe that you're meant to be in Mexico and that you believe you're safe being there and that you uh, can stand up for yourself if you live alone, right? You live in a big city like Mexico City. Spirit is saying that if you believe that you can do it, then you can. You have the authority. Love that. Now let's go to healing from the past. This card comes to you because there's a recurring pattern that stems from hurt feelings in your past. It's time for you to change this pattern by facing and healing old emotional pain. You may feel tired of revisiting the same issues, yet believe that there's no other way. Oh, that's it. Okay, additional meanings. Facing your feelings, forgiveness, healing work, leadership and activism. Ooh, and authority we have here too. Releasing emotional and physical weight and donating old items. So some of you may relate to that, or maybe it would be good to live in one of these countries and be an activist of some kind. I don't know how exactly that would work, but if you like, I don't know. So you would just have to take with that what you will. I will leave it. No, actually, I will not leave it at that. I am not done because we have this oracle card right here on screen. I want for you to think about a question or just think about the reading itself, the messages that have been provided for you. This is all about timing. It's a timing card. So think of a question or just tap into the energies of the stack. And now I will turn it over now. Here is the card. 31 next couple of days. So I imagine a lot of you will not be moving in the next couple of days, but I think what this card is insinuating is that over the next couple of days, just really soak in what I've said and see if any of it resonates with you. I think there are definitely parts that don't resonate with you, definitely parts that would. So over the next couple of days, really consider every single thing that I said because, sometimes with these readings too, it can be a lot to process. And I think some of you maybe don't even feel drawn to these places. And so it would be a good time over the next couple of days to be like, why don't I maybe resonate with these places? And where do I resonate with instead? And for some of you, maybe you do resonate with either of these countries and what was I going to say? Maybe you do resonate with these countries And maybe you just haven't thought much about why you resonate. Maybe you could have had past lives here, right? This could also indicate just over the next couple of days doing your own research. So splitting time up, taking time to do research over the next couple of days, and you'll get a better picture of what your life will look like if you were to live in these places. You can also look up, I'm hearing looking up personal accounts, like on Reddit, for example, or on YouTube of people's experiences living in or even traveling to these countries and what it's been like. Also, for some of you, I think you need to figure out career-wise if you would be able to do your career in these kinds of places. So over the next couple of days, considering that and doing research. That's a big part of what I'm hearing is doing research and identifying what resonates with you, what doesn't, all of that. But also over the next couple of days, you could get signs about if you should maybe one day move to one of these places. Like, hey, Spirit, will you send me a monarch butterfly tomorrow or today if I should move to this place? And if you see one and you never really see butterflies like that, then it's like that could be a sign, right? So look out for signs over the next couple of days as well. If you ask any questions to Spirit as it relates to this reading, then they should hopefully provide you with answers. Like, or send me a blue butterfly if I shouldn't move here, and then they'll send you a blue butterfly, right? Okay, I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, 4D, for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with this stack at all, and you can update your comments sometime in the future if you have any updates for us all to read. Especially if, because I think some of you really don't resonate. For some reason, this stack, it's like, I feel like if you chose this stack, you don't resonate, some of you, more than other stacks with either of these countries. So maybe in the future it will resonate a lot more, or over the next couple days. And you can subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. You can check out the other timeless pick a card reading videos located throughout my YouTube channel. And you can check out my ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR, that is linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, 4D, and take care.